This video gives a quick overview of Echinoderm tubefoot structure and function. Echinoderm tube feet are at the ends of sea star feet, and they're also on sea cucumbers and sea urchins. They're these long, slender tubes with a suction cup at the end that can extend and go back. Echinoderms walk on them, they feed with them, and they're based on this water vascular system. The water vascular system is a way to move fluid in and out through this little pore. It's a little filter plate that keeps out potentially harmful organisms but allows in seawater, and seawater can move in or out, and it moves out through the water vascular system, a connected series of tubes, to all these little bulbs. And all these little bulbs are flexible in size, and they can be squeezed by muscles to push water out into the tube foot, which you can't see in this image, or they can have the water taken back out and moved back out of the animal. So this allows adjustable total water in all of these, and it allows the echinoderm to adjust how far out the tube feet are extended. So let's look at how that works. Here is a diagram of tube feet. It's a water-filled tentacle with adjustable volume and a suction cup on the end. Water can go in and out here. When the valve is closed, the water is a fixed volume in here. But the ampulla can squeeze. There are muscles, these little black spots here are muscles that wrap around, and the ampulla can squeeze, get smaller, and force fluid out, and that will extend the tube foot outward. And so the way a tube foot in echinoderm reaches outward is to squeeze the ampulla with these muscles going around the ampular muscles. Let's say the tube foot has extended as far as it can with the ampulla squeezed almost all the way shut. What if the echinoderm wants to extend it out further? Well, the echinoderm can briefly open this valve, move in more water. Cilia can move water in through a current, refill the ampulla, and then the ampulla can contract again, and this tube foot that was extended out can extend even further. So that's the flexible amount of water through this valve. Okay, so that's how the tube foot can extend. How does the tube foot grab onto something, and then how does it retract? The tube foot grabs onto something with this suction cup at the end, and that suction cup, if we zoom in, the suction cup would look like this at the base. It has mucus glands here. The mucus glands secrete a sticky mucus, and so when the suction cup touches something, it can secrete sticky mucus to attach to it. Each tube foot has information it, in a sense, knows, although of course it doesn't have a brain. It knows it has touched something because it has these little sensory hairs. See the sensory hairs coming out here all the way around the tube foot. So if the tube foot is in contact with something, all those hairs will be bent. They all are attached to neurons, and they have sodium stretch channels to detect the bending. And if all the ones all the way around the edge are bent, then the echinoderm must have its tube foot flat against something. It can secrete mucus, and then it can use its suction cup. Well, where's the suction cup? The suction cup uses these levator muscles that produce suction. They're these tiny little muscles here, and when they retract, they pull the middle of the suction cup up. So when these are retracting, they pull the suction cup. These little ossicles are tiny little bones, and they provide a bit of stiffness that helps anchor these levator muscles, and it stiffens the shape of the suction cup so that it doesn't just warp when you pull up on the middle. So the mucus provides adhesion, it's a glue. This provides information, the sensory hairs, on when we're touching something, and the levator or lifter muscles can create suction and attach the tube foot. Okay, so we've extended the tube foot, we've attached the tube foot to something. How do we pull back on the tube foot? Maybe because the sea star is walking, or maybe because it's attached to a clam with a whole bunch of its tube feet and it's trying to pry the clam open to eat it. It has retractor muscles. They're longitudinal muscles running all the length of the tube foot. And when they contract, when they shorten, they pull the tube foot back. And so if this echinoderm keeps on shortening those and pulling them back, it can actually pull these back very close to the body. Well, where does all that excess water go? The echinoderm opens the valve and the excess water goes back into the water vascular system and even out of the animal. And then the tube foot can repeat. So tube feet can extend astonishingly long distances and shorten astonishing amounts because the walls of the tube foot have so many elastins, they're very stretchy, and because it can adjust the water volume. Let me do a quick sketch to show what that looks like and how I would sketch it. So I would sketch it with the ampulla. It's a pretty ugly ampulla. The tube foot here, and then here is the water vascular system with water, seawater that can go in and out. Here's the valve. You can have the hinge at either the top or the bottom, but the valve can open or close. Oops. Here is the outside of the animal. So this is inside. Here's where the tube foot sticks out. So here's outside, seawater. And then the inside here is filled with water. So connected to the water vascular system. The muscles will have ampulla muscles that wrap around here and can contract the ampulla. And so when these contract, it forces water down and causes extension. So these are the extender muscles from the ampulla. Then we have lifter muscles in here. So these are the levator or lifter muscles. And when they contract, when they shorten, they pull up on the middle and they create suction. There are mucus glands, and they secrete the sticky mucus that is a long tangle of charged groups on it that adheres really well to substrate. And then there are cells with sensory hairs that detect when the tube foot is or is not touching something. And so tube foot can tell if it's just touching on one side or if it's touching all the way around. If it's just touching on one side, it's just bending these hairs up. If it's all the way around, it's bending them all. So that has allowed us to, one, squeeze water out and extend the tube foot. It's allowed us to detect when we're touching something. It's allowed us to then lift up on these levator, using these levator or lifter muscles, and create suction and attach with the sticky mucus. How do we retract the tube foot? That's the last set of muscles. And those would run lengthwise here. And these are the retractor muscles. They are also longitudinal muscles, and if you wanted to just call them longitudinal muscles, you could do that. What if we wanted to bend the tube foot? Well, if we wanted to bend the tube foot, we would just retract one side. So if we retract just this, shorten just this side to that much, then we'll pull we'll bend the tube foot in that direction. So if this one stays the same length, but this one is shorter, we bend the tube foot that way. And so the retractor muscles, because they're running lengthwise all the way around the tube foot, they allow the tube foot to bend in any direction. This makes the tube feet an incredibly flexible method of walking, and there can be neural circuits that simply involve a tube foot going through a cycle of events in which it extends until it touches something, and then once it does, it contracts the retractor muscle on one side, which will bend it. And if it's attached to something and we bend it in this direction, then the echinoderm goes in this direction. So these get used for walking and attachment and feeding and all kinds of things. They're amazing little systems. They're also wonderful to use for neural circuit designs. And in my class, I often have neural circuits that I have students do using tube feet.